I think that what is really important is that well-designed and adopted cadence of meetings actually saves you time, right? Because it's creating the rest of your calendar, or it's creating a defensible calendar. It's telling you, hey, this is a topic for a weekly meeting. Why are you bugging me with it now?
And welcome back to CardCast, the podcast where Milan and I pick a card at random from a deck of cards just like these, conceived and designed by Milan himself. Now, in these CardCasts, we pick a card at random and then just have a chat about it for about 10, 15 minutes. Sometimes more, sometimes less. Let's shuffle that pack and see which card pops out today.
Right before we do that, I have one little comment. You should really pick up the new deck when you're showing it on, because now we have the one with actual suits and numbers, so people can even play with them.
Should we do it again?
No. I mean, like, this is live. We're doing this, right? Off we go with the shuffle. Okay. Meeting Cadence, diamond card. So diamond cards are about systems, right? Value, systems, processes. Time is massive value, so we'll dive into that. We talked about the meeting prep as an important tool in our episode about accountability with Damien. So why meeting cadence? Why? What is it in your world?
Well, first of all, I guess people love to hate meetings. Meetings and metrics are the two things that people hate in business, and to me, it doesn't really make any sense because we're social animals. We should like meetings. We should like having regular meetings, but generally they get a really, really bad rap, and people try and do everything they possibly can to avoid meetings. And it's not because meetings are bad. It's because we run bad meetings. So the whole notion of a meeting is to get something achieved. And most meetings just don't do that. And when we introduce the notion of a meeting cadence to new clients, we often get the same pushback. Daily huddles, meet every day. That's just crazy. We haven't got time to meet every day. What the reasons that people give for not liking meetings are the same no matter which group of leader you speak to. They never start on time. Okay, well, that's disrespect. We never know what the meeting's about. Well, that's just poor planning and preparation. We never make any decisions. Well, that's a problem of a poorly run meeting. We don't know who should be making these decisions, who's accountable. Well, that's accountability. We take actions, but nothing ever gets followed up. Now, all of these things are not inherently about meetings. They're about poorly run bad meetings. So if we can address those issues, you'll start to see you get real value out of those meetings. And that's what really the Metronomics meeting cadence is all about. You run good meetings, you turn up on time early, you start on time, you know what the agenda is, you've done your preparation, you know who's accountable for decisions. And if you start running meetings like that, you'll start to love meetings. And the other paradox that I often see is that you normally have to start having more meetings before you can start having less meetings. And that is really counterintuitive because over time, those structured meetings that you have every day, every week, every month, every quarter, every year, all different, all structured different, all with different agendas, they'll remove the need for a lot of your normal operational, tactical, and project meetings that probably shouldn't be happening anyway. Sorry, that was a bit of a diatribe. That's what I think about meetings.
I just wanted to say that it looks like you have a very concise idea about meetings. Maybe you should write a book about them.
Well, it's funny you should say that. I am writing a book, and you know that, and I'm hoping to get it out in the middle of 2026. So I'm not committing to a final publishing date yet, but Meetings That Matter is a book I'm going through right now. And when I say to people I'm writing a book about meetings, I get the same reaction as when I suggest you should have more meetings before you have less meetings. They look at you as if you're crazy. Why would you write why would you write a book about something that people hate? Well, because I'm trying to get them to not hate them. I'm trying to get them to see how meetings can be incredibly valuable, constructive, and effective. And the only way you can make that happen is by running good meetings. And that's really what the book is about.
Oh, 100%. You know, the extreme case of this is that, when you have enough badly run meetings, right? And you have people who don't know that they are badly run meetings. They just assume that this is what meeting does. You hear even the joke that having a meeting is the best way of avoiding work, right? Like if you're trying not to get anything done, just call a meeting, right? Task force, even better. If you want to put everything into, in a
Working
whole,
group.
yeah. Look, I think that we've had we were talking about the prep for the meetings, right? In the episode with Damien, where we were talking about what goes into the prep, what goes into the agenda. We also had episode on the big decisions versus big debate, which is again the purpose of the meeting, right? All of those things come together. So I will refer our listeners to those episodes and those cards on the CEO game for that. However, this is about cadence, right? So, what is the cadence? What are the meetings that are in our calendar repeatedly? What should we expect from them? What are the different agendas? That's what this card is about, right? So, what are the sort of anchor meetings that are happening on a regular basis? Does your book cover that as well?
Absolutely. It covers it in a fair amount of detail. I mean, should we just walk through, starting from the daily huddles? And yep. So daily
Another
huddles.
card, another episode. Yeah.
Yep. Daily huddles every day, apart from the day when you have your weekly meeting. Talk about those in a moment. Very, very short meetings that are really intended to synchronize the team on what is important for the day and what is going on in everyone's world. So, very simple agenda. No, it is good news. You share your critical metrics. You share the one thing you have to do to be able to say that you've had a good day. Yeah. And you talk through your stucks, your blockers, things that are getting in the way. So anything between 7 to 15 minutes, never more than 15 minutes. If it's more than 15 minutes, you're doing them wrong. Anything that you would do differently there, Milan?
No, I just have a question because I've seen daily huddles done in different size of groups. Do you have any take on that? And look, you just put, you're writing a book or you're finishing a book, so I will treat you as the expert. What I'm going to do here is just ask questions, but let's use that knowledge and let's share it. So, um, any take on the number of people? Any rule of thumb there?
Well, that's more a question on how big should a team be. And a leadership team is normally between, I don't know, 3 and maybe 8 people, rarely more, because if it gets more than 8, then you can't, the leader can't really lead and manage a team bigger than that. So that's really how you dictate the size of a daily huddle. But as it cascades through the organization, the same sort of rule applies, that no one leader should really be accountable or responsible for more than 7, 8 people. It goes back to Roman centurions. There was a fixed number of people that a centurion was expected to lead, and the leaders within that. And this is just a question of how many people can you actually physically lead and manage. So as you propagate out through the organization, that team size shouldn't be significantly different. And there might be a few exceptions. One team might have 12 people or 15 people, and maybe they're people that don't need a huge amount of management. They're very, very self-contained, and they know exactly what they're doing. So I guess the key thing is it's not really the number of people at the meeting. It's the fact that you ultimately want to get to the point where everyone is having 2 huddles a day. First of all, it is their team huddle, as in the people that are working with you. And then secondly, the team of your peers. So as a leader, the other peer leaders in that level in the organization. So the only people that only have one huddle are the CEO, who is this side, and then the frontline staff that are this side, because they only have
the
their
individual
own individual team
contributors
leader.
wherever they are, basically anybody who does not have people reporting to them or people that they're leading. Let's use that. Yeah. I know that we are going slightly off topic, but I'm the same approach. Like, who is a leader in the organization? Well, if you have people you're leading, You're a leader by definition. It does not depend on what level you are, how deep you are in the hierarchy. My goodness, that's out of the conversation. Okay, so that's daily
Yep.
huddle. I think that we beat
Yep.
that horse to death.
Yep.
So you mentioned something about weekly. So then what?
Yeah. So once a week, every week, we have a weekly meeting. Agenda is similar but different. So
Mhm.
always start with good news. We review metrics. I always introduce the priorities into weekly meetings as well as metrics. And as an optional topic before metrics and priorities is a review and update of the key function flow map. So has the status of any of the critical functions in the organization changed over the week? Now, that's often something I introduce when I first implement weekly meetings. I'm not necessarily reviewing the key function flow map, but I try and introduce it by the end of the first quarter because I want people to be talking about how their individual functions are operating. So, good news, key function flow map if you're choosing to do that, metrics, priorities, and then the rest of the meeting, which is normally about 60 minutes to 90 minutes, is working as a leadership team to solve one, two, maybe three operational or tactical things. Oh, there's one last agenda item that I did forget is the market and customer and employee feedback. So I normally do that in between the priority review and moving on to one, two, three tactical operational things. So in the feedback section, we're just asking the leaders to share any feedback they've seen from the market, from their customers, from competitors, and from employees that it would make sense to propagate through the organization as quickly as possible. So again, simple agenda, just a few critical points. It's the dynamic nature of things like feedback and the one, two, things that really give you the value of the meeting beyond an update on priorities, metrics, and functions.
I think that what is really important here is that the focus of the meeting, the purpose of the meeting, is what? Is to remove any barriers for us hitting our priorities, right?
That's right.
So
Mhm.
those discussion items, those dynamic items need to take precedent over everything else. Like, if we are getting red, if we are not hitting our milestones, if something's happening, what can we do as a team to remove that barrier to actually make it happen? Or do we need to make any reshuffles, right? It's a tactical meeting, very, very important.
Yep.
And we have so many different frameworks and different ways. Like in EOS, you would call it level 10.
Yep.
This weekly meeting is really really important in the 4 disciplines of execution thinking. Like those things are converging, right? So whichever of them you use as your inspiration, the rules are the same. Let's make sure that we are focused on the objectives. We are removing barriers here. Let's go back to prep. Let's not waste each other's time on reporting. That's why we have open playing field. That's why we have dashboards. That's why we have the prep that goes in there that, hey, this is what I'm going to talk about, or this is what I need your help with. This is what you need to know because that can be read. So again, another favorite adage, this meeting could have been an email, right? Things that could be an email, could be a message, will be a message or an email. Meeting will be used only for things that require a meeting and only with people that belong to that meeting. So squirrels, right? Have you seen my meeting squirrel that I give my clients? Right? It's like squirrel is very important in a meeting. When things go off track, when you are sitting there and you're hearing two people talking about something that you can contribute to, and say, hey, can you guys take it offline because this is wasting my time? That is perfectly fine.
Yep.
Okay,
Mhm.
so that's our weekly. I think that there is a separate card on weekly meeting actually.
Mhm.
Uh,
Yeah.
one
So you
more thing
normally have
happens weekly. One more thing happens weekly, right?
you can have one-on-ones too. Mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, you
Some of
should,
my
right?
clients do weeklies fortnightly rather than weekly, but that's a matter of choice.
Mm-hmm.
And the one-on-one is just the leader meeting with each of their direct reports individually. And one-on-ones are relatively informal. How are you going? How can I help? That's that sort of meeting. There's various different agendas for them. Some are more formal, some are less formal. How do you structure your one-on-ones, Milan?
I think that the most important thing is that the function of the one-on-one is the dedicated time the leader has for the person that reports to them or that they're leading. So what this means is this is a signal and say, hey, I'm giving you this half an hour or 20 minutes or whatever it is every week or an hour every 2 weeks. Again, we can talk about the different methods depending on how many people there are in the organization. But my favorite cadence is let's do it weekly. Let's do it on off cycle with the weekly meeting, right? So if we are doing our weekly meetings on Monday, let's have our one-on-ones on Thursday. Because if that person needs some help to still hit their things for the end of the week, we still have a day and a half to do it, right?
Yep.
We don't double up on the agenda because if we talked about it on the weekly, we don't need to talk about it again on the one-on-one. But really, the point is that it's the team member who is driving the agenda, right? You, as a leader, you can use that time for anything that you need to address with that person, and you should, but their agenda takes precedent. You as a leader are there to help them and to be available to them. So you should never cancel it on your own. They can say, hey, this is my update. There is nothing I need from you. Can we punt? That's fine. But you should not, as a leader, deny the time to them because that is what that is also protecting your calendar. Because if they need something from you, they don't need to send you a message and thank you of your cycle because they know they'll be talking to you tomorrow or day later. And if it's not urgent, we'll just put it on the agenda of the one-on-one and we'll deal with it then. I heard it several times from several clients that the establishment of the one-on-ones was the biggest lift in the productivity of the team. Because again, as a leader, your main job is to pull people up, right?
Yep.
And this is absolutely essential tool. It's an opportunity for you to coach them. It's an opportunity for them to ask for advice, not necessarily help, because you don't want to, sometimes underneath the guise of help, you have the doing it for them type of thing, which is what you don't want to do because then you will stifle their growth. But, one-on-ones are, I'm very particular about them. As you probably can, as you can hear.
Yeah. And it's a coaching meeting. It is a coaching meeting between the leader and their direct report, driven by the individual, not by the leader. Absolutely.
Every 13 weeks, you do what? Coaching review.
You do a coaching review. Coaching review.
In that same time, because it's already scheduled, it's already done, right? So there is a secondary purpose of that.
Yeah. And we're jumping a little bit ahead because in between that and the coaching review, the quarterly is the monthly meeting.
Exactly.
Now, you'll probably realize there's a similarity in the agendas. Good news. I always ask a big question. That's a functional question that is really aimed to see what everyone's thinking about the business, about what the problems we've got, what the opportunities are, what the challenges are, those sorts of things. Not everyone does that.
Can you give me an example? Can you give me an example? Because I'm not using the tool. So, keen to learn.
Yeah. So for me, that would probably one every 4 months, I just ask a simple question. What is your biggest challenge? Could be in the business. It could be in your individual function. Other things might be, what are 1 to 3 brutal facts that we need to get out on the table today that everyone needs to be aware of. At a recent one, the CEO was away. He was away for a month. So I stepped in and I ran their monthly meeting for them. And my question was, if you were CEO for the day, what would you change or implement in the business? So people were able to answer that question without the CEO in the room. Now, they shouldn't have been held back if he was in the room, but this way, there was nothing to hold them back. They could be open and honest about what they're going to say. And we got some gold out of that one. Got some real gold.
Oh, yeah. No, I love that. Yeah. I called it the king off. Like, imagine that you can, swing a magic wand or wave the magic wand and something happens in the organization. What would be that one thing, right? It's a similar version of the same question.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. If you had a magic wand, what would you change? What would you do? What would you implement? Absolutely. Which is another one that I use.
Yeah.
And that one's slightly different because you're not taking it from the perspective of the CEO. You're taking it from your individual perspective. And there's a long list.
I really like that distinction, because if you were the CEO, the one we have right now, right? Like it's a very different framing. I like it a lot, actually. I'm stealing that one. Yeah.
So there's various lists of functional questions, within the Metronomics portal. There's one. There'll also be one as an appendix in my book that's coming out in the middle of 2026. And that I'll often choose the question to reflect what is going on in the business. You know, it's not just a random selection. I try and choose a question that's going to be useful, insightful at that point in time.
Yep. Yeah.
Okay. So from there, key function flow map is the next one. Then metrics and priorities. Now, in the same way as for the daily huddle with metrics and the weekly meeting for metrics and priorities, this is just a status update. We're red, we're green, we're amber, we're super green, whatever. And if we're not green or super green, this is what we're doing to get back on track. It's not a detailed discussion. It is a very, very quick, probably 15, maybe 45 seconds on each metric and priority. So we're supposed to get through this really quickly, because where we want to land is the main part of the meeting, and monthly meetings for me are between, I don't know, 2.5 to 3.5, maybe 4 hours sometimes, but no more than that. Where we want to get to as quickly as possible, ideally within the first 45 minutes, is this dynamic section where you choose from a prioritized list of issues or challenges or problems or things that need to be debated or discussed or decided upon. And then you prioritize and work through as many of those as you can. Now, I call it 1 to 3 big things, because we invariably do 1, we often do 2, we frequently do 3, but sometimes we can get through 6 things. And if there are some smaller things that need to be discussed that people have put up to be prioritized, I might say, is there anything we can get off the wall in 3, 4, 5 minutes or less? Just these little things that hang around that otherwise don't get the airtime. That we can just have a quick discussion and a decision. So I'll time box that. How long do we need? 3 minutes, 4 minutes, 5 minutes? And if we haven't finished by the end of the time box period, we move on. Yep. Come back to it some other time. So this is about really focusing in on the things that are getting in the way of us achieving our targets and our priorities over the quarter. Because you only get 2 check-ins like this. Every quarter, there are only 2 monthly meetings. So if something comes up at the last monthly meeting, you've only got 4 weeks before you're coming to the end of the quarter. So this is your really significant point to make sure that you're keeping things moving over through the quarter. As always, one phrase close at the end, capture actions, make sure we got dates, make sure we got accountability. And that stands for all of the meetings we've talked about so far.
Yeah.
Do you do things anything different?
I like rating the meetings, and one thing we could do better. So, that's part of the cycle to make sure that we are getting better at doing meetings. Right.
I like that.
That is a skill. It's a muscle you need to train, you need to practice. Not much I would do else. I think that the important piece is making sure, again, that the topics are lined up with the priorities, so that those take precedent. And then the one thing you didn't mention is that it's also a place to reflect that, hey, we are red on this priority, but this is the reason, and this is what we're doing about it. So we might be changing the definition of done. We might be actually deprioritizing. We might be pushing this thing into next quarter. Like this is the cycle at which we decide whether something remains relevant or not, right? That is perfectly fine. We're reviewing the quarterly priorities to make sure that they are still valid, but it's about it. Similar again when we go one step up, right? When we'll start talking about a quarterly meeting, that's the same thing what you're doing to the annuals at that point, right? But I don't know if we want to go under that scale, because now we're getting to the strategy part of things, right? Everything until this point was tactical. But once we start talking quarterly, now we're talking about strategic work and how is the next quarter going to contribute to our tree hack and all of those things, and how we're tracking and setting up the goal for the next quarter, setting up the goals, setting up the targets for our metrics, and setting up the new set of priorities. That's a bigger picture. But I think that, if we go back to the point of cadence rather than the content, I think that what is really important is that well-designed and adopted cadence of meetings actually saves you time, right? Because it's creating the rest of your calendar, or it's creating a defensible calendar. It's telling you, hey, this is a topic for a weekly meeting. Why are you bugging me with it now?
Yeah.
Right? Mm-hmm. Or why didn't you bring it up in huddle? Like, why are you calling me? right? I just saw
Yeah.
you 15 minutes ago or 2 hours ago. Like, dude, if you're stuck on that, you didn't know that 2 hours ago. Like, what's going on? And if you didn't know that 2 hours ago, it cannot wait till tomorrow, right? We can build very healthy set of habits around the
Yeah.
cadence that in effect is going to make our week much more productive and much more um, disruption free or interruption free. So we can actually do our work too.
Yep. Mhm. And of course, there are other monthly meetings as well. From the year two beyond, I always do a monthly cash flow P&L forecast meeting. So we're updating one more month at the end of our 36-month metrics and financial P&L. So for these, what are the metrics we're going to aim for at that final month? And how does that translate through to revenue, profit, and ultimately cash in bank? And also a town hall. Some of my clients do a monthly, some of them do them every 6 weeks, some of them do every 2 months, just to vary the cadence. But those also fit within the meeting cadence too. Is that how you run that monthly cadence also?
Yes, I do recommend monthly town halls unless there is a lot happening. I have a client who keeps weekly staff meetings. They have the leadership weekly and then cascading messages from that to, it's a smaller organization. So, bringing people together is not that difficult and it's pretty short. While town hall, we want to be bigger. And I think that what is really important, and you didn't mention it on the monthly cadence, is the cascading messages, right? Like, what is it that we talked about here and what out of that we want to share outside of this room to make sure that we are aligned and consistent when we're talking to the rest of the organization, because people will always worry like, okay, what's happening behind that closed doors or over there,
Yeah.
right? And providing the sunlight, providing the transparency, providing the clarity is a big job for the town hall, but also for every single leader who walks out of that room and then have their meetings or then has their meetings with their cascading teams.
Yep. Now, if we're talking cadence, we should probably talk at least about the cadence for quarterly meetings and annual meetings, but there's probably separate cards for those, and we should talk about those in more detail in those CardCast sessions. But the cadence quarterly, well, speaks for itself. Every 13 weeks, half execution, half strategic. And annual planning meetings, normally 2 days offsite with the leadership team, where you work on reviewing how you went the previous quarter, evolving, refining strategy, working on team cohesion, and setting out the plan for the next 12 months and the next 3 months, the next 90 days.
Yep. Let's talk here about one last thing, and there's the scheduling, right? Because it's a cadence, it's predictable, which means that every single of that meeting can be in everybody's calendar year in advance, sometimes
Yep.
years in advance, because why the hell not, right?
Yep.
Why would you, I can't meet next week because I having a vacation? Like, dude, like how long did it take to plan that vacation? You knew this, right? Like whatever that actually is. So we want predictability. So
Yep.
setting up your cadence and then just we are having our weekly every Monday at this time. We are having our monthly the fourth Thursday of every month. Like, whatever that is, then just what the calendar tool is going to do it for you. Put it in. Doesn't mean you can't change it. But what is
Absolutely.
important is to have the place hurdles in and everybody arranges around it instead of just, when are we going to meet this month? Or when are we going to meet the next month, right? I don't have this time. I didn't plan on it. I put something else there. No, protect the cadence and it will protect the rest of your time and the rest of
Yep.
your productivity.
Yeah, I try and get clients to commit to what days they're running their sessions on for weekly, monthly, quarterly meetings at the kickoff. And as you said, they can change, but put a stake in the ground. Is it the last Friday of the month? Is it the first Monday of the month? Is it the second to last Wednesday? Now, everyone wants a different cadence because that works better or worse for their financials or for other considerations. Some people would like to get everything done on the Monday so that the rest of the week is clear for them to go out and meet clients and do their jobs. But put a stake in the ground, choose your days, and ideally the same day for your weekly, your monthly, and your quarterly, just so it doesn't get in the way of the daily huddle cycle too.
Yeah, I think that I have a couple of examples of different cadence options as a sort of template that can be pulled from the CO game from this Meeting Cadence card. But I'm with you. Like there is absolutely no reason, and I do the same thing. We talk about it at the kickoff to make sure that we are set, because without that cadence, there is no execution, right? It's just messing around, really. This episode's getting pretty long for a one that we thought would be pretty short, but we generally make that mistake, so no surprise there. Anything to add? Any final thoughts on this one?
No, for me, I'll come back to what I started with is people hate meetings and they don't hate meetings, they hate bad meetings. So don't run bad meetings, run good meetings, and they'll work for you. And over time, you'll find that you'll be running less meetings rather than more meetings. But you've got to stick to the agenda and you've got to stick to the purpose of each of the meetings. And they've got to be in your calendar up to a year in advance, maybe more.